today is different. We received a message from a listener. Her name is Linda. She is 28, and she gave us permission to share her story. I am going to read it, and then Amy and I will talk about it.
I have read it already. Go ahead.
Linda writes, I want to share something that happened to me 2 years ago because I think other people might have gone through something similar and felt ashamed about it the way I did. I have been studying English for 6 years. I felt ready. My reading was strong, my writing was okay, but I had almost no experience speaking to native speakers in a real situation.
Go on.
I applied for a position at an international company in my city. It was my dream job. The interview was conducted in English. I prepared for 2 months. I rehearsed answers to every question I could find online. On the day of the interview, I felt prepared, and then the interviewer said something I was not ready for. Not a question, just a comment, she said. It is quite cold today, is it not? And I froze.
The cold,
Linda writes, I had prepared for, tell me about yourself and what are your strengths, and where do you see yourself in 5 years? I had not prepared for small talk about the weather. I said, yes, one word, and then there was a silence that felt like it lasted a year.
Thank you for writing that, Linda.
Genuinely. It takes something to send a story like that to strangers.
I wanted to say something to Linda directly, even though she will hear it later. The weather moment was not why you did not get the job.
Almost certainly not.
Small talk at the beginning of an interview is not evaluated the way the interview itself is. The interviewer was trying to make you comfortable. One-word answer to a weather comment does not disqualify anyone.
But I want to sit with something Linda said, that the moment became the symbol. Even if it did not affect the outcome, it took up enormous space in how she understood what happened, and that is worth talking about.
Because it happens so often. You perform well for 40 minutes, and one moment of awkwardness becomes the story you tell yourself about the whole experience.
The brain is very good at finding the moment that confirms the fear.
The fear being, my English is not good enough. And then the brain searches for evidence, and the cold moment is right there at the beginning, easy to reach.
Linda had prepared meticulously for the formal parts, the questions, the vocabulary, the structure of her answers, and none of that preparation covered the human moment before the interview started.
Which is the part that cannot be rehearsed.
And which is usually not decisive.
Usually, but it can affect how you feel going into the interview itself. If the small talk goes badly, or feels like it went badly, you carry that into the room.
That compound effect, one small difficulty creates internal noise that makes everything after it slightly harder.
What would you say to Linda about the weather moment specifically?
I would say yes, one-word answer is underwhelming, but the recovery from one word is very simple. You add something after, is it not? Yes, actually I wore completely the wrong jacket this morning. Anything. 5 words after yes, and the moment is gone.
The moment is gone because you recovered. Not because it was the perfect answer.
Small talk has very low standards. It is not looking for brilliance, it is looking for human warmth. Any evidence that you are a person who can exist comfortably with another person, that is all.
One warm sentence about your wrong jacket is enough.
Completely enough.
Linda also said something that I keep thinking about. She said she had almost no experience speaking to native speakers in a real situation. 6 years of English without real conversation practice.
This is very common, and it matters enormously in interview situations.
Because the English of reading and writing, and even speaking in a classroom, is genuinely different from the English of a live conversation with someone you have never met.
Different pace, different vocabulary, different tolerance for silence, different signals about when it is your turn to speak.
And none of that can be fully prepared for without actually doing it.
The preparation Linda did was not wasted. It got her through the formal part, but the gap was in the informal register, the conversational English that you develop by having actual conversations.
Which is a hard thing to tell someone who put 2 months into preparing.
It is, and I do not want it to sound like your preparation was wrong. It was not. It got her into the room. It got her through 40 minutes of interview. English. The gap was specific and learnable.
What would you tell someone in Linda's position who is preparing for an English-speaking professional situation?
Find real conversations, not practice conversations. Real ones with people you do not know, about topics you have not rehearsed, even brief ones. The barista at a coffee shop, a question to a stranger about directions. These are not dramatic interventions, but they build the same muscle that got activated when the interviewer said it is quite cold today.
The muscle for the unrehearsed moment.
Exactly. You cannot rehearse this specific unexpected thing, but you can build the general capacity to handle unexpected things, and that comes from exposure to many small unexpected things over time.
I want to say something about shame because Linda used that word. She felt ashamed.
She did.
And I think shame is one of the most expensive things that happens around language learning because it turns a single moment into evidence of something fundamental. Not, I did not handle that small talk well, but I am not capable of this.
The leap from a specific failure to a general identity.
And once you are carrying that, every subsequent difficulty confirms it. You are not just having a hard moment. You're being shown something true about yourself.
Which is not what is happening.
Which is never what is happening. You had a hard moment. The hard moment was uncomfortable. It is over. What you do next is what matters.
Linda did go back. She applied again, 2 other positions. She writes at the end of her message, I got a different job 6 months later. The interview also started with small talk. This time I said something about my coffee. I do not remember what. If the interviewer laughed, I got the job.
The coffee.
The coffee?
From one word about cold to something about coffee. That is not a language transformation. That is one sentence of willingness.
One sentence of willingness made the difference.
Linda, thank you for sending this, and for the job.
If you have a story you would like to share, something real that happened to you in English, we would love to hear it. You can send it to us. We read everything.
Now let us talk about what Linda's story tells us about job interviews specifically, because there is more here.
The formal part and the informal part.
Most interview preparation focuses entirely on the formal part. The questions, the vocabulary, the structure of the answer, and those things matter.
But interviews also have an informal layer, the small talk before, the casual moments in between, the way you respond to something unexpected, and those moments are being read, even if they are not being graded.
They are being read. For what?
For how you are in the world, whether you are someone who can be easy to be around, whether the people in that office could have a normal conversation with you on a Monday morning.
That sounds soft, but it is real.
It is very real. People are hiring a colleague as much as a competency.
So what does that mean for preparation?
It means leaving room for the unrehearsed. Do not overscript yourself. If you have prepared your answers so rigidly that any deviation throws you, you have over-prepared in one direction and under-prepared in another.
Prepare the structure. Leave the words loose.
Prepare what you want to convey. Trust yourself to find the words when you are in the room.
And for the small talk, have 1 or 2 observations about the immediate environment ready, not rehearsed lines, just noticing the room, the view from the window, whether there is good coffee, something you could say if given an opening.
It does not need to be clever. It needs to be human.
The interviewer does not need to be impressed by your weather observation. They need to feel that you are a person who can exist comfortably in a room with them.
And 1 warm sentence about your wrong jacket is completely enough for that.
Here's where we leave you. If you have been in a situation like Linda's, where one moment became the symbol of something bigger than it was, what is the more accurate story you could tell yourself about what happened? I want to stay with the interview context for a little longer, because there are some specific things that Linda's story surfaces that are worth talking about directly.
Go ahead.
The first is the gap between written and spoken English in a professional context. Linda said her reading was strong and her writing was okay, and that is exactly the profile of someone who has learned English primarily through studying it rather than through using it.
The academic profile.
Very common and very understandable. If your exposure to English has been through textbooks, exams, reading and writing exercises, your brain has built strong pathways for exactly those things. But the pathway for live conversation is different. It requires a different kind of processing.
Reading gives you time. Writing gives you time. Speaking in real time gives you none of it.
And that gap between the time you have on a page and the time you have in a conversation can feel enormous when you are in it for the first time.
There is a specific version of this that happens in interviews. You know the answer to the question, you have prepared it, but the moment someone is looking at you waiting for you to speak, the answer becomes harder to access. Not because you do not know it, because the pressure of the moment has changed the conditions.
Performance pressure is a real cognitive load. It takes up space that you would otherwise be using to find words.
This is why the more experience you have speaking in real situations, the less of your brain is consumed by the speaking itself, and the more is available for what you actually want to say.
Which is the argument for doing difficult things in English before you feel ready.
Before you feel ready is exactly when it matters most. Because if you wait until you feel ready, the readiness you are waiting for may only come from doing the thing you are waiting to feel ready for.
Circular, but true.
Circular, but true.
I want to talk about something Linda mentioned that I think is often glossed over. She said she prepared for 2 months. 2 months, that is serious commitment, and the outcome was still difficult.
Because preparation and performance are related, but they are not the same thing.
Preparation reduces the probability of things going wrong. It does not eliminate it.
And sometimes, when things do go wrong after extensive preparation, it feels worse because the expectation was set so high.
You did everything right and it still went wrong. That is a particularly painful version of a difficult experience.
Linda, if you are listening, the 2 months was not wasted. The 2 months was what got you into the room, and through 40 minutes of interview English, the outcome was not a verdict on the preparation. It was the outcome of that particular day, with those particular people making that particular decision.
There are so many factors in a hiring decision that have nothing to do with you at all. Budget constraints that changed after you applied an internal candidate who was always going to be preferred. A panel member who had a very specific vision that you did not happen to match. None of that is visible to you from where you are sitting.
You can only control what you bring into the room. You cannot control what is already in the room when you get there.
Which is a frustrating truth, but a real one.
The most useful thing Linda did was apply again 6 months later. That was the move, not dwelling on the cold moment, not spending 6 months reprocessing what she should have said, preparing learning and going back in.
With a story about her coffee.
With a story about her coffee.
Let us talk about what to do in the moment when something catches you off guard in an interview or a professional context. Because the freeze is real and it happens to everyone, and there are some things that help.
The freeze comes from your brain doing something like, "This is not what I prepared for. Please hold while I search for an appropriate response."
And the hold can feel extremely long even when it is only a second or two.
The most useful thing in that moment is to buy yourself a second without the silence. Feeling awkward, there are natural ways to do this in English. That is a good question. Let me think about that for a moment. Or, that is interesting. I want to make sure I give you a good answer. Or even just, yes, absolutely, and then use the next half second to find a thought.
The bridge phrase, something that signals you heard them and are engaged while your brain catches up.
Bridge phrases work in casual conversation too, not just interviews. Someone says something unexpected and you need a second right. Yes, that is interesting. Tell me more about what you mean by that.
That last one is particularly clever because it passes the conversation back to them, which gives you more time.
You are not stalling. You are showing genuine interest while also buying time to think.
Which may actually be both things simultaneously.
Often it is real curiosity and needing a moment are not mutually exclusive.
For the weather moment specifically, which is the context Linda was in, the bridge can be almost anything that continues the contact and shows you are present. Yes, I barely noticed it was this cold when I left this morning. The commute woke me up fast. That is 8 words. It is warm. It is human. It moves on.
And then the interviewer says something back and you are in a conversation rather than a silence.
The goal is not to be impressive. The goal is to maintain contact.
Maintaining contact is the whole job of small talk.
Nothing more is required.
One last thing before tomorrow. We mentioned that if you have a story you want to share, you can write to us. We mean that Linda's message took courage, and it turned into something that will reach a lot of people who have felt exactly the same way and needed someone to name it.
Your story does not need to be dramatic. It does not need to have a happy ending. It just needs to be real.
Real is enough.
Here is where we leave you. Think of a moment when English surprised you in a situation you had prepared for. What happened in the gap between what you expected and what actually occurred?
We will see you tomorrow.
Take good care.